Mayang buntag, mayang hapon, mayang gabi, no matter where you are in the world. Yeah, I gotta adjust this camera a little bit better. I really need to do something about that background. It hasn't started yet, so I'm just gonna kind of chat here for a second or two and wait and see if it starts. But there we go. It's kicking in. There we go. It's kicking in. There we go. It's kicking in. Makes for an interesting echo. Mayang buntag, mayang hapon, mayang gabi, no matter where you are in the world. That I know I have sound today, so I can just plod right on. I appreciate all you guys understanding and dealing with the week off that I took, and it did. It helped a lot. It definitely got my head back into a better frame of mind. Is what's going on. The last week, the first week of Chana's life was an interesting roller coaster. That there were a lot of emotions from everybody, and it was a bit of a challenge. And after a few days, I just decided I needed some time, and that's what I did. Chana is now 2 weeks old. That Saturday was her first week, and she is just beginning her second week now. Papa and I took a short walk yesterday. We went down to the Emlawellier, and it was kind of a fun little walk with them. And Papa and I decided we walked back up to the 7-Eleven we passed just before we ended the live stream. And him and I snuck a show power and a soda, and he actually got a Gatorade. And we were going to take a cab back home, back to the house, because both of us were a little tired from a week off and not doing it. And we couldn't get a cab to stop after second, third try. I asked him, well, how much the jeepney cost? And so we took a jeepney back up to the Sing Sung Road there at the hotel across the street that I made comment about. It was so expensive, and then took a tricycad, shared a tricycad back into the townhome. And it was a fun little experiment. It was a fun little experience. I haven't been on jeepney since we got here. For a lot of time here, they just weren't around. I need a haircut desperately. I'm getting the wings back in here. They just weren't out. And it's only recently that they've actually started to come out more. I may try to do a video of one of the jeepneys. I noticed an area on the way up to Basai, where the Sorrel Gardens is, that they have a ton of the old style, the traditional stainless jeepneys. And they're just parked. And I would absolutely love to go up and do a photo essay of that area. And so I may jump on Russi, and I got a new camera bag coming in today that lets me take just a couple lenses and the camera body itself, not all the accessories that the entire backpack has, which that backpack is great for certain times. Morning, Mr. David Brown. How you doing today? That the backpack's great in for certain times, but for general times, just going down to get a quick, simple photo essay or just a series of photographs. It's too much. It's just got way too much, and the bag is a little bit big to carry for every friggin' possible scenario. And it's great if you're going out and are trying to carry for every possible scenario. But most of the time, you don't need to do that. And I kind of realized that after getting it. I definitely don't regret getting it. I'm glad I do, but I do need something smaller. Mayang gabi, Jojo. But supposedly, uh, Lazada is delivering. Matter of fact, I put in an order for Lazada for a small one, and supposedly Lazada is delivering it in a baby swing today. Cindy's got my Philippines phone, so that if they do deliver, she'll know about it and be able to uh, take the call and get everything for that. Uh, yeah, I completely skipped a groove. Last week helped me do a lot of things. That one, I helped clear my head to where I'm not quite as frustrated by everything going on and all the changes and everything. It allowed Cindy and I some time to sit down and actually talk about what's going on and how it's affecting us personally and how we're trying to deal with things each in our own way and got us both back on track uh, for a little bit better peace of mind, a little bit better headspace. Well, which we kind of needed to do. And it was having a kid, that I believe everybody here has had kids before. So you understand and appreciate the change that it institutes, that it brings. And to be honest, I'm an older guy. I'm kind of set in my ways. I kind of like things done this way all the time, every time. Definitely a product of routine. And yeah, that there has been no routine in the last couple of weeks. The pregnancy helped a lot getting me prepared for that, but not so much to deal with the reality of that. And that's kind of where we're at now. But like I say, that we did get through that, and Cindy and I talked about it, and we're both in a lot better headspace over it. And she understands a lot more about where I'm coming from. I understand a lot more about where she's coming from. Uh, we sat down and had almost a day long talk. We laughed, we cried, everybody hugged and kissed. It was a wonderful time. All the stereotypical uh, unpacking, and we both understood that in the end that we both have Pumpkin's best interest. That we both want the absolute positive best for Chana, and we'll be doing everything in our power to make sure that happens. Although we're looking to go to the same goal, we sometimes have different paths to that goal. And not saying either path is better or worse, but just different. I guess I thought it was done more commonly here, but I guess it's something that at least Mama and Cindy have never really done, is rocking an infant. And Chana seems to have really taken to it and really like being rocked. The first night out at the hospital, that I was kind of rocking her and doing a little dancing with her and stuff, and she seemed to absolutely love that. But it was something that Mama and Cindy have never really done. So, Chana was kind of expecting that to be done, I guess, and it took them a little bit to get on board with doing it. That Cindy doesn't really pick up Chana when she feeds with a bottle, or Mama really doesn't pick it up. They prop up the bottle, and that's something I've never done. And sometimes Chana likes just to lay there with a bottle held for her, and not being in her arms. And it's just blending different ways, different things of doing things. And being a parent is like being a kid, that everyone's a little bit different. Doesn't mean any of them are bad. And doesn't necessarily mean it's bad, just different. That's I don't know if either one of you guys watch Mark Shoemake. That he's actually here in Cebu City. He came in last night. That he's going for his 13A and had to go into uh, immigration. I had one of these days I'll actually manage to stay on groove the entire time and completely shock myself and everybody around me. Ah, it's not COVID, not COVID. Ah, but yeah, I messaged with him and we're kind of talking about possibly meeting up a little bit later after he gets more completed with you better believe it. Uh, David, he's actually a vlogger over. He was in Dumaguete for quite a while, and him and his wife bought some property up by Bais in Negros Oriental. Negros Oriental. I'm not sure if they're across the border into Occidental or if they're still in Oriental, but they're in Negros. Yeah, I guess they actually came through Moab Wall. That he was a little upset that they have guide fees at Kawassan Falls now. And oh, I'm not wearing my glasses. From this distance, I looked at that. I looked at your comment about Marlboro, and it looked like Moab Wall. That's where the random Moab Wall comments came from. But yeah, he was a little. He came in last night. He was at SMC side when I started chatting with him, and they're staying here in Cebu City overnight and going to J Center Mall here in Cebu to the immigration to do the biometrics for the 13A. I'm hoping to hear back from him. I haven't yet. That I thought it'd be kind of cool to go do a little bit of a meetup with him, see what's going on. He was amicable to it, and said he was going to be down there at 7. And I kind of texted him a message a while ago, and he still hasn't even read it. And I'm not sure if it's just data issues or what. Debating on whether or not, because I actually do need to go to J Center Mall. They're one of the few places that have GoPro batteries. And typically have them in stock. Yeah, my GoPro batteries are a little bit in need of replacement. That they're not holding a charge like they normally should, and even after a day or two of sitting on a shelf, they're down to 60% charge and all that fun stuff. Use that they get about 30 minutes worth of use before they die again. So far, I haven't had any recently. Not genuinely explode like some lithium batteries, but they do kind of blow up and bulge out. I've had a couple of them do that in the past, and these haven't done that yet. So before it gets to that point, I'm probably going to go down and get a couple of fresh ones and just cycle them in until these do get a little bit worse shape. The minute I have a little bit of difficulty pulling them back out of the camera, I will trash them. One of them, probably about almost a year ago now. Like I say, it didn't explode, but it expanded bad enough that I played heck getting that stupid thing back out of the GoPro. I almost thought I was gonna have to drill and screw it. drill it and put a screw in it and use that to yank it out uh, to get it back out. And fortunately, it did. I, I stuck it in the freezer for half an hour, and that shrank everything enough to where it, some gentle coaxing, and it did finally come back out. But yeah, that was a not a fun experience that I do not want to repeat. Uh, I was really worried about damage to the camera at that point, and the camera seemed to be fine. So, but GoPros are really good about that. They take a licking and keep on ticking. I want to say these are about a year and a half old. I've been getting pretty decent life expectancy out of thise things. I've gotten the original GoPros once, and I really haven't used them again since. Uh, Matter of fact, it was one of the GoPros is the one that did expand and cause problems. Uh, but yeah, the cheap Chinese ones seem to work as well. Uh, Although lately on the most recent firmware update, I do get a notification that they're not GoPro batteries. Uh, I don't know. I don't know. And we are looking at, not we, but I'm looking at getting a possibly upgrading one of them to the 10. That I've got the 7 and 8. I didn't do the 9 because there just wasn't enough upgrade between the 8 and 9 to justify it. But between the 8 and 10, there is more than enough upgrade to justify it. If we do upgrade to the 10, we're gonna is gonna sit down and kind of weighs pros and cons, I think, and put either the 7 or 8 up for sale and sell it. We'll probably, any of them that are still functioning, we'll probably still include a couple of batteries, a couple of the old batteries, just as kind of a promo gimme to it. But and either the 7 or 8 has some strong reasons to keep it and have some strong reasons to get rid of it. The biggest negative on the 8, and they did this only on the 8, the 7 and the 9, on the 9 they went back to it. The 7 and earlier, you can replace the front lens. The 9 and 10, you can replace the front lens cover. But the 8, the front lens cover was not replaceable. You had to replace the entire body, which meant sending it back to the factory, and it wound up costing as much to buy a new one as it did to replace that element. And like I say, that there was enough complaint that they realized the error of their way and went back to making it a replaceable lens cover. I say lens cover because the glass piece you see in the front is not the lens. It's actually a cover. The lens is underneath the cover. Although most people call it the lens, and it's accepted as being the lens and all that rot, but the actual physical lens is underneath that. And that was the original purpose of doing that, is so that it was kind of sacrificial piece that you could, replace that, and you could scratch it, do whatever to that and not damage the actual lens. Yeah, Jojo, that's unquestionably true anymore. A few years ago, there was a commercial of a guy that he was sitting there by the billboard and watched him put up the new billboard of this brand new computer. and he went in and made sure he was first in line. He bought this brand new computer, and it shows him going back out and going by the same billboard as they're putting up the new model that's just come out. On Facebook, they have a ton of buy and sell groups, David. That any of the communities, if you go search Cebu, Moabwal, Malabalay, Dumaguete, if you go search any of them, they've got buy sell sites of all kinds by there. The Facebook, way more so than Craigslist or OLX or any of the others, seems to be the place to sell that stuff here in the Philippines. They do have a Philippine version of eBay, but it's not anywhere near as popular as the other ones. One time, while Cindy and I were still dating, I'm not sure if before or after we met, I bought a sweater dress for her. And I think it was before we met. Like I say, I'm not sure. I'm thinking it was before we met. But I bought a sweater dress for her off of eBay and had it delivered to the condo in Manila that her and her brother were staying at. But it was a very limited thing, and there wasn't a whole lot. But it was all that I knew. I wasn't on a lot of that. I still don't. I don't think I've actually been on eBay here in Philippines since I got here. I know that it's out there, but I haven't even looked at it. I did look at Facebook. I did look at Craigslist one time for something, and it's not terribly big either. No worries, guys. I'm actually kind of stopping in, and I'm going to end this probably a little bit before the hour's up today. I may continue through the hour. Just got to depend on what the conversation is going like. But enjoy and be careful on the roads. Yeah, I periodically go back through and just double check that I didn't miss one of the comments. Speaking of Marlboro, I'm going to have one. I hope you guys don't mind. I try to be discreet about it, but it was actually about 45 minutes before I logged on to here. I lost track of time. I was watching some videos from YouTube on some U.S. stuff and just got lost in that Kyle Rittenhouse trial is ending up today. I guess they're in for closing arguments before jury, and I was watching some of that and some of the other videos along that lines that I'm kind of curious on how that's going to go, because that's going to have some pretty severe implications no matter how it's decided. And I was kind of surprised to see some of the people so polarized on some of these comments in it, and just a further example of how bad things are in the U.S. as far as not having a middle ground anymore. You got two polar opposites in a battleground between them, no longer a middle ground. And that I don't know. It's gonna, the next few years is gonna be interesting in the U.S. That's for sure. And that's actually that's actually something that is weighing on our mind kind of heavily about whether or not we really want to go back. Uh, and at this point, quite honestly, we are looking at alternatives to stay. Um, our working game plan, as I said yesterday, is still to go. And that there is enough things to do that we need to get done and want to get done. And there is still enough reason for us to go back that going to the U.S. is still the working game plan. And believe it or not, the election in Virginia and even New Jersey, especially as big of a stronghold as that is giving me hope that there may be some moderation and some common sense going back in. I don't know. I'm 5'11". That's kind of high, isn't it? Morning, Mr. Daniel. Or good evening, Mr. Daniel. How you doing today? Well, you're pretty high up in the mountains, aren't you, JoJo? And Daniel, he's actually pretty high in latitude, so I guess that kind of makes everybody a little bit high. But so have you gotten snow up there yet? Yeah, that's kind of high up in the mountains, so that's high. That qualifies. Oh, okay. See, and Daniel gets to be double high. That 2 years ago in 2019, Cindy, Mama, Papa all went to Flagstaff to see the snow. Oh, cool. That this is our Philippines. Just sent a messenger picture of dinner for him. He went to a Korean barbecue. Yeah, that's right. Georgia does have up in the mountains that they do. They actually have ski resorts up down there too, don't they? All right. I'm kind of curious. My metric is sketchy at best. Oh, that's 1,600 feet. That is kind of high up. That yeah, my metric is leaves a lot to be desired, and it causes for some confusion around here too. Uh, Temperatures, I'm getting a little bit better about it, and I intentionally leave a lot. Well, I intentionally leave all of our thermometers in Celsius, in centigrade to help with it. But especially if we go back and wind up seeing Fahrenheit again, it's going to remove any gains that I had made. I'm just being picky. It's just OCD me that I saw the water bottle in the little corner over here. Kind of frustrates me. So everybody on the yellow list can get in the same as the green, or is it kind of a revert and making everybody on the green list go by the yellow standards? That Jojo, I've got some ballpark estimates that kind of give me a rough estimate. I know a square meter is roughly 10 square feet. Uh, Temperature, yeah, other than -40, I don't know any of other than the three key ones, -40, freezing, and boiling. I don't know any of the standards. Uh, the only reason I'm -40 is where they actually intersect. -40 is the same in Fahrenheit and Celsius. Now, is Canada on the yellow list or green list? Either one? Because if that's the case, I'd fly out of Canada. Or would you have? If I could show, I was in. I don't know. This is getting kind of crazy because uh, Philippine experience. You know, if that was the case, I'm sure he could go to Canada for a week or a month and go in through go go in go in as if he's coming from Canada. Uh that At least he could quarantine in Canada, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. Uh Now, are tourists? Oh, the US is on the yellow list. I didn't know that. Somebody told me it was on the red list. And that's kind of part of the problem with these red, yellow, green lists in countries like the U.S. and Canada, uh, and even Russia, and I hate to say it, but China. The countries are so physically big that what you guys deal with in British Columbia is not the same as what the guys on Prince Edward Island deal with, or for that matter, Montreal. You know, that Montreal deals with something different than both of them. And it's the same thing as New York, Georgia, and Phoenix don't have anything in common other than being in the U.S. Oh, yeah, that's going to screw up a lot of people. And the more I'm seeing about the vaccination, and the more crap that's coming out about it, yeah, the less willing I am to get this particular vaccine. Uh, I've been seeing a lot of yellow flags, maybe not quite red flags, but definitely yellow flags. That unless you are in a legit high risk group, it may not be a great thing to do. Jojo, I think that depends on locale and origin and destination. Uh, my sister is currently in Mexico, and a couple months ago they drove across and didn't have anything other than showing passports to get back into the U.S. But now flying back, you have to have, and she's fully vaccinated. That they're saying you still have to have a negative PCR test within 72 hours. Yeah, and Daniel, you're correct on that too. That some airlines, regardless of how the destination and origin feel about you, they require you to be vaccinated. So it just, I I'm not happy about the quarantine, but I will take the quarantine over the vax at this point. I'm hoping against hope that we can get back to the U.S. without being vaccinated. If that's a requirement, that's something her and I'll have to discuss and throw that into the pros and negatives to make a decision on whether or not we want to try and go back. Nothing is absolutely dire urgent that be done. Yeah, I guess Southwest ran into a huge problem over that. I guess they had a huge problem with people not being pilots and staff not being vaccinated and refusing to get them. They stood down versus the vaccination. So Daniel, do you have to be vaxxed and a swab test, or is it vaxxed or a swab test? Because that's part of what's confusing me is we all got the polio vaccine so that we didn't get polio. Not that it was just a lesser case of polio or that we could. It was so you didn't get it. This is the only virus or whatever that you have to be vaxxed for, but still need to be tested for, can still get the disease, can still pass the disease, can still die from the disease, but are less likely to die from a disease that has over a 98% survival rate. I don't get it. I don't get it. I got a friend of mine back in New York State that a guy he knew that was in a very high risk group. He had heart conditions, he had cardiac problems, he had respiratory problems, he had age, he had weight. Basically had about 8 different high risk groups all combined. And so he was fully vaxxed. He was one of the first to get fully vaxxed. And he just recently died of COVID. I don't know. It just, if taking the vax would do away with the testing and everything else, and you can't get COVID, cool. I would probably, it would probably be convenient enough to go get the, against my better judgment, it would make convenience good enough to go get it. But yeah, I don't see any benefit to getting it if I've still got to go through all the same hoops that I got to go through if I'm not vaxxed. So yeah, no, it's went from a medical necessity to a political expediency. And yes, and this is a problem in the U.S. and in a few other countries. I believe the Philippines as well. That they're not taking into account any natural immunity. I have talked with Cindy, and for a few personal reasons, she's going to get a hold of either a doctor we know or her OB-GYN and just use the fact that we're around Shauna so much as justification, if need be, for all 4 of us, Mama, Papa, Cindy, and I, to go down and get tested for the antibodies, get the antibody test to see if we have the antibodies in our system. And I believe that will help just to make sure. And technically, if Cindy has the antibodies in her system, I think Shauna will have a natural immunity to it without ever having gotten it. So I don't know. But it's the same thing with and people say, well, this is a virus. It's not a flu. Well, the flu is a virus. That it's just a different virus each year. And they're major groups of viruses. And the coronavirus is one of the major groups. Corona is typically responsible for most colds and such, but we're a handful of different, more extreme cases of SARS. That it's just variants that these viruses go through. And so, yeah, there are variants of it running around just as there have been for the last 40 years. Some of them cause a common cold. Some of them cause SARS-CoV-1. Some of them cause, I believe, swine flu, avian flu. But there was 3 or 4 different major strains that they caused. And SARS-CoV-2, which is why they call it SARS-CoV-2, is just another variant of that. And it just... And JoJo, you're right. It has gotten to be a 3-ring circus, and I think the world in general is getting sick and tired of it. And you're starting to see a lot more pushback worldwide. And so I think the governments in most democratic countries are realizing they've pushed the population about as far as they can at this point, and need to start getting back to life as normal. But it's going to be very interesting to see how life resumes back to normal. I can remember air travel before 9/11, and you just walk down and got on a plane. There would know none of this stuff, and you'd walk up to people, you'd accompany people up to the friggin' boarding gate and talk with them, and give them one last hug as they were getting on the plane. And at this point, they barely want you in the airport, if you're not actually flying. So it's going to be interesting to see what the post world looks like after this. That yeah, I haven't seen David on. I'm kind of surprised to see that coming out of you, Greg. Yeah, Dr. Fauci is supposed to be the medical god guru, whatever, for the medical community. And even a lot of the medical community at this point is renouncing him. And if you notice, you haven't heard from him in a few months. So, yeah, there's some interesting on that one. JoJo, the next time you see David Brown on, that he's in New Zealand. So a lot of what Australia is going through, New Zealand's going through, what New Zealand in Australia kind of run hand in hand in a lot of this. But yeah, that talking with him, that there's some a lot of very interesting things about the political situation in Australia and New Zealand. But yeah, it's getting crazy worldwide. See, obviously I'm not getting a whole lot of U.S. news other than what I find on YouTube. and I have been watching YouTube quite a bit. But yeah, Fauci doesn't seem to be making his rounds on YouTube that much anymore. Even Fox, as bad as they were ragging on him for a long time because of the silliness that he was espousing. I haven't seen much about Fauci lately. Uh, I guess he got into a little bit of trouble with the some of the crap he was doing, and I just kind of assumed he was trying to maintain a little bit of a low profile before the politicians started throwing him under the bus to avoid themselves. But yeah, I know you've been literally a frontliner and in the trenches throughout this entire thing, Greg, and you have some legitimate personal I don't know how to say it, but you got some personal experience and personal experience with it. I guess that's the best way to say it. And they have developed your opinions and attitudes about COVID. Fortunately, thank God, I haven't had. And if you Jojo and Daniel didn't realize it, Greg actually had COVID. That he got COVID and has recovered fine on it. He's fully vaccinated. He's an RN at the hospital in Casa Grande. I hope you don't mind me sharing that much, but that's kind of on Facebook. That much is on Facebook too. So yeah, he's definitely been a frontliner throughout this from the scratch. Him and I have had some discussions about it and getting his firsthand experience on it. And I appreciate the honesty that he's been with it. And even though we may disagree with it, we've kept everything both factual and polite. And that's all I've ever asked from anybody that I talk with. Keep it factual, keep it polite. I'll talk with you. Enjoy, Daniel. I appreciate you guys having you here, and I appreciate you understanding for my little hiatus on that I needed some headspace. Hey, Greg. Tiffany is a teacher, right? Early education teacher, correct? That Carolyn sent us some info about infant milestones, developmental milestones that I asked her about, and because we're kind of seeing. Oh, so she's kind of secondary education. Okay. We're kind of seeing some things that seem to be a little bit early. And I will be bluntly honest with you. I am not sure how much we're reading into things that are just coincidental behavior versus intentional behavior on her part. And so that's kind of what I was looking for. Some someone that's a little bit more understanding of early childhood development, and possibly some information. Like I said, Carolyn sent some really good resources that she knew of that talk about early childhood development. And like I say, I think some of them we are reading into it. Some of them might be early signs of it. I have rather a booming voice that I've always been able to project fairly well without yelling, to the point where I've often been accused of yelling even when I am speaking. And Chana and I do around John, I do try to intentionally tone it back a little bit. But Chana tends to follow my voice whenever I speak to her. That even when I intentionally move out of eyesight, line of vision for her, and then start talking, she'll immediately turn her head. Carolyn and a speech development speech therapist that we know have made comment. It might be because I got a fairly distinctive voice here that she's following the voice more than anything else. Well, which is a very good sign for her hearing. But it may not be she's actually tracking the person. Like I say, we could be reading a whole lot more into it because we're rather proud parents about that. We want Chana to be the next frickin' Isaac Newton. Here's one of my GoPro batteries. That goes back to the discussion we had earlier on in this. The GoPro batteries don't discolor or tear up quite as bad as the cheap Chinese ones. But this battery, while it was set off to the side, is it does not hold charge well at all anymore. That battery seemed to die a little bit worse. That now, yes, that is something I definitely want to do. Greg, is she teach her reading and writing early on? I've thought about this, and I may look a little bit more into it. There's actually a writing system for Visayan, Ayanian or something like that. I don't remember what it is. That is the legitimate pre-Magellan written form of Visayan. And I've been thinking about asking Cindy and Mama to help Chana start learning to write like that as she starts to learn to write. Greg, Cindy's brother has some kind of provisional license for teaching in the U.S., and that's what these contract teachers, for hire teachers, I don't know what you want to call them, but the teachers that come over on contract, that they do. Is Daphnia looked at the possibility of doing something like that? And I don't know if she'd be interested in teaching high school or college here, and they're in the USA. Yeah. Her brother teaches middle school and taught in Orlando for a year, and almost ended the contract a couple times. He was calling in the school resource officer to deal with the class at least once a day, and occasionally, frequently, 2-3 times a day to deal with the kids. And I he's since moved to Asheville. Asheville? Yeah, I think Asheville. North Carolina, nearby Mayberry. And doesn't mind teaching there. But yeah, that he was not impressed. Really? Can she go back and apply for a J1? I guess that'd be a backstep. Well, I don't know. Yeah, I am. I'm going to comment on that. That's completely friggin' asinine. Yeah, that's ridiculous. Why? No. Years ago, and this goes back to Clinton and I think even Bush administration, that there was a very common bumper sticker in Arizona. I love my country. It's my government I fear. And it's crap like that that causes bumper stickers to be written like that. So he has a J1 visa that he came over on the J1, and that's what the teachers, the foreign teachers that come into the U.S., that's what they come in under, and obviously that must be why they come in under the J1. That he's got a 5-year provisional license, either through the J1 or because of the J1. I guess that I didn't realize that they were tied together like that. I knew that he had a J1 and a provisional license, but I didn't realize they were tied together. Now, H-1B is a different visa that's still valid. The J-1 is a cultural exchange visa. And I don't know how they put being a teacher as cultural exchange, but like university professors, engineers, doctors, lawyers, that type of stuff come over on the H-1B. The J-1, I guess, is more for teachers and stuff like that. Well, J1 can be extended too, because he has a 2-year contract and can extend 3, but after 5 total has to leave the U.S. and can restart it, can reapply and all that stuff, but has to leave the U.S. and do it from outside of the U.S. There's a ton of YouTube videos about the J1 and the teacher situation that is happening because of it, because there are so many openings for teachers that have went unfilled, that teachers, especially from the Philippines, are coming over in droves to fill these vacancies. And I guess a lot of the teacher unions are very upset about it, that they're calling it outsourcing teachers, and they're I don't know. I guess there's some, like anything else in the U.S. at this point, I guess there's some pretty polarized opinions on it, and both sides have to a limited degree legitimate complaints, and I like most things that the complaints they have and the benefits they believe that they're trying to espouse, and they're refusing to find any middle ground to say, okay, this might work for this reason, well, let's work with it, instead of saying it all or none. So I don't know. It does make for an interesting couple hours on YouTube, and I spent about 3 hours on YouTube going through all this, because I'd until John Ray, I'd never heard of a J1 visa. And after hearing it and knowing that some of the school teachers and stuff, and I knew some of the school teachers, and I didn't know what visa. I kind of thought they may have been coming under that H-1B. And it was when he did it just before we left that I found out that it was a J1 visa, not an H-1B. And that's when I started to look into it, and that there's not only constraints, time constraints and such that are different, but what you can do while you're on that visa is also different. Because I don't think they can use a J1 for like a university teacher. That I believe would have to be the H-1B, and that's The J1 is for, I believe you still have to have your graduate degree, master's or doctorates, to get that. But the H1B, you have to have an advanced degree to even apply for. And I know you can do a lot of work and such like that on the, you can do a lot of different kinds of work. Whereas John Ray is limited to teach certain kinds of. I just got a message, your connection's unstable. I guess he can do certain kinds of tutoring, but I'm not entirely sure on it. But yeah, there's limits on what you're able to do on each different kind of visa. I know some people came up on some kind of agricultural worker visa. That friend of mine back in Phoenix, that he runs heavy equipment and would periodically go out and run grader. That he's qualified and he does this GPS crap with a grader. That he understands the computer that's in the grader to make sure everything works right and all that good crap. But generally, he just sits there and twiddles his thumbs. But most of the time, periodically it'll lose connection and this other crap, and he's got to be able to figure out what to do quick. But he knew a bunch of people that came up from Mexico on some kind of agricultural worker visa. And one of them went and tried to work at a Circle K part-time and got into a huge ruckus about it. The farm got into a ruckus for letting them do it. And so, yeah, that each visa, it limits you on the type of work you can do, as well as length of stay and other stuff too. But and that's part of the problem with the American immigration system. David, I don't know if the same is true in Australia and New Zealand, but there's so stinking many different kinds of visas in the U.S. It almost takes a lawyer to keep up with sorting out what you can do on each visa, how long you can be there on each visa, and all the silliness and nonsense, because some of them overlap a little bit of it, some don't overlap at all. Some of them are just they almost, yeah, you ain't lying on that one. They've almost intentionally made it a nightmare so that the average person could not understand what you needed without going to a lawyer. And I don't see any reasonableness to that, other than the fact of intentionally making it so complicated the average person could not understand it any longer. That's the biggest thing they need to do on immigration reform. It's just streamline this. Okay, make a basic immigration visa for semi-skilled, non-skilled workers. Make a basic visa, entry visa for skilled tradesmen. Make an entry visa for large classes and let them figure it out past that. Screw these H1B, H2B, J1, there's a J4, there's way too many, and they so well overlap that just streamline the process, make it way simpler. But I notice I've been on here a little over an hour, and Daniel, Daniel from Canada was making a comment that I guess there's some crap going on in Australia right now that he was hearing about. So you may get asked about that next time. Next time you both are online at the same time. Sadly, the worldwide is going crazy. But from a little bit less crazy place in Guadalupe from Toad Chip Compound, Mabuhay.